very cruel, Senator.
Right, away you go.
Thank you. Look, thank you very much. My questions are quite specifically related to the manufacturer of the Jabiru engine in my home state of Queensland. Is it fair to say that currently CASA and Jabiru are at odds in relation to some prevailing conditions under which their aircraft are allowed to operate?
Mark Skidmore, Chief Executive Officer and Director of Aviation Safety for Civil Aviation Safety Authority. Senator, I don't think we're actually at odds in regards to the operations of the Jabiru-powered aircraft. We established back in December 2014 some limitations regarding the operation of Jabiru-powered aircraft based on data and information that was provided to us by the ATSB, by Recreational Aviation Australia and our own investigations.
Could you just, for the sake of people who don't know what we're talking about, just tell us what's happened in this instance? Have they been put out of the air?
Senator, the aircraft is still operating under some limitations that we established, and based on that data that we were provided, which indicated that it was around 2 to 3 times more occurrence of engine-related in-flight shutdowns and other issues, or in-flight shutdowns in particular, than other similar powered or similar capacity engines. So based on that, we established a number of limitations that would mitigate our concerns in regards to the safe operation of those aircraft.
Senator Solomon.
So do they include, but not necessarily limited to, not permitting passengers to be carried in a Jabiru aircraft? Let me finish them so you can. Considering no solo operations, the signing of a warning notice prior to flight, no night VFR flights. Were they part of the limitations applied by CASA?
There was limitations in regards to notification to passengers being carried, not over populous areas, and no night VFR, from my recollection, Senator.
So what would be the substantive reasoning behind not allowing them to fly over populated areas?
It was based on our concern in regards to the number of in-flight shutdowns, that if you're operating over a populous area, then if you did have an occurrence, it would be unfortunate for those on the ground. So we're trying to mitigate and ensure the safety of those personnel on the ground.
But would it be a fair question to say that if you're so concerned about them operating over a populated area, oughtn't that concern be that they oughtn't operate? I mean, it's okay to sort of have a high risk to crash in a non-populated area, but not in a populated area. I mean, that's what that restriction says to me.
Well, it's a consideration in regards to the risk associated with it and trying to make an assessment in mitigating those risks, but at the same time allow people to operate those Jabiru-powered aircraft.
Look, you may have to take this on notice, but what data did you rely upon that had you draw the conclusion of the number of shutdowns calculated?
Your question.
We had data from ATSB, from Recreational Aviation Australia, and from our own investigations, and should be able to get the exact data.
Would you be able to do that?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any knowledge of the data? I mean, there'll be no point in me asking you the questions if you're not familiar with the elements of the data.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, did the data include occasions where the failures occurred as a result of the aircraft running out of fuel, not a failure of the engine?
We did have all that information, and they would have been excluded. We were predominantly looking at in-flight shutdowns.
Okay. So do you have, as is the case with when these assessments are made, do you have some grid that you compare to what, and I find this an oxymoron statement, but an acceptable rate of failures of an aircraft engine? Is there some reference you run your finger down and go, if we have, in every 1,000 flights we have 10 shutdowns, that's unacceptable?
my own background in regards to operations of aviation incidents or aviation operations. There will be an assessment that you'll make in regards to the level of risk that's acceptable. Certainly for military operations we used to do that. In the case of civil operations, I believe it's in the rate of about 1 in 10,000, but I'll refer to my Associate Director of Aviation Safety, Dr. Jonathan Alley.
Jonathan Alec, Associate Director of Aviation Safety. Senator, we use the baseline that the NTSB, the US NTSB established, and it was based on 1 in 10,000 occurrences of an occurrence with an engine as being the acceptable level, if you will. And the rates that we found were considerably above that.
How much above?
Oh, 2 to 3 times. 2 to 3 times.
What?
3 failures per 10,000.
3 failures per 10,000?
Well, I think...
Well, they're actually 2
Yeah.
to 3 times comparable
The rate.
engines.
Yeah.
So when we looked at equivalent engines, their rate was 2 to 3 times that.
Those, yes.
The engine, like, declare an interest, you know, I started in a 140 and then went to a Victor and then went to a 150. What was causing the engine failures?
That's what we're trying to work with Jabiru to determine, Senator.
But is it fair to say that some of the engines that are now under consideration are an enhanced engine to some of the engines that were involved in the failures? We're using data from Model A, and now Jabiru's manufacturing has moved on and produces a Model B engine. Is that a fair assessment of what's happened within Jabiru?
I can't give you that exact answer, Senator. I am aware that there have been a number of modifications that have been proposed by Jabiru.
No, that have occurred, not proposed.
No, they have modifications. They've done modifications to the engines.
Yes.
But
So-
was it fuel injection or bearing failure, or what was causing the engine failures?
Senator, that's what we're asking.
But you'd have to know, these failures have occurred, they'd be subject to your investigations.
There have been some investigations and we've done some teardowns on the engine, Senator, but we are not the manufacturer of the engine.
No, that's not my question. The burden of my question, sir, is that an event occurs where an engine fails. The burden of his question is you then conduct an investigation, a very, very thorough investigation of the circumstances of that event. The burden of the question is, what were your findings? When you looked at those engines, where there'd been a failure, what were the findings?
If we have that information, I'm not sure whether Jonathan has it.
Yeah, Senator, the nature of the light sport aircraft engine is somewhat different to a certificated engine. The manufacturer is responsible for inquiring into the causes of failures. Now, what we identified was a particularly high rate of failures that appeared to involve, based on the information that was reported, not to us, but reported to the ATSB, reported to the manufacturer, and we learned about it from field experience, involved valve sticking, failures of the through bolt, and hydraulic lifter, problems with the hydraulic lifter roller cam configurations. Those are the 3 that we focused on, and Jabiru conceded that those occurrences were contributing to a significant number of the failures that occurred.
But did Jabiru indicate to you that they'd gone on and designed and now manufacture an enhanced model of that engine?
Well, what they have said was, and part of our concern is that when the problems arose in a particular engine, they repaired or replaced the parts that were involved. And their obligation under the certificate under which they manufacture is to make an inquiry as to the root cause of those things, to see if it is, and we haven't formed a conclusive view on that, to see if it is a manufacturing-related problem.
Can I ask a dumb question?
No dumb question, Senator, but
Where are the engines made?
where are the engines made? In Bundaberg.
Where?
By Jabiru, Senator.
But where? In Australia?
In
Yes, in
Bundaberg.
Australia.
Bundaberg.
Yes. So the whole purpose of the precautionary limitations were until we can find out what the problem is.
And resolve it.
So that the problem can be addressed, we have limited the risk to which people involved in the use of the aircraft are exposed. So it's not a solution, it's not a cure, it's a risk mitigation.
So with this particular engine, to your best of your knowledge, what's the maximum hours one of them's run without?
We have participated in a tear down of an engine with the 3 modifications that was at about the 900, roughly 900 flight hours.
The standard calls for 200 hours. A test would be effective if it operated for 200 hours. This aircraft had 900, so that was quite impressive.
The engine had.
Sorry, the engine had.
During a meeting on the 14th of November, were you advised that there had been design developments that had been made to the Jabiru engine over recent years? You were made aware of that?
That there had been design developments to the engine over the years? Yes, certainly. We were
And
aware
they'd
of it
submitted
before.
to you that they felt that they had resolved some of these critical issues that you've used to place these limitations on them? Did they make that submission to you?
They suggested that was so. I think the
Okay, so
question
thank you for that. What evaluation have you now done on the enhanced engines to see whether their performance is better than and up to an acceptable standard versus the old engines? Gentlemen, this company is on the verge of tipping over. And this has been a long-running saga. I don't have time because the chairman, obviously we have to restrict our time amongst ourselves.
About 3 times over.
Thank you for the indulgence, Chairman. But if any of these facts that have been presented to me are correct, in relation to how CASA has dealt with this company, in how long it's taken, in the manner that the consultations occurred, then there's a problem, a serious problem. Now, I won't have time to deal with it today, but maybe we can have a quiet audience for me to go through some of these issues with you. Otherwise, I'll be asking the colleagues to join me to have an inquiry to have a look at how you've dealt with this.
Certainly happy to have a discussion, Senator.
All right, I'll be in touch. Thank you, Chair.